Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Bebop here. Today's video is going to be about the spear and great axe combo, the main point of a spear, and then also a supporting weapon that you can run with it with updated perks and whatnot. So let's go ahead and get into it. If you plan on running the spear, let's say in a mutation or in the hive, then this is pretty much the setup you want to go with, and it can vary depending on week to week. What gems you put in here, obviously it's void week this week. That's why you see the void gems in here. Now, we're going to start off with the clothing. What you want to have with the spear is Fortify Perforate. Perforate gains stack of Fortify, increasing your armor 10%. For 6 seconds, max 3 stacks, so that will help maintain your survivability. You definitely want to have that on a piece, okay? That is just so good to have for a spear. Enchanted Ward is a must on as many pieces as you can get in PvE content. It is the most important perk in the game for PvE content. You must have it. Refreshing, you want to be 4 out of 4. If you can't make 4 out of 4, you know, try to figure out a way, but 3 out of 4, okay, that's fine. But with the spear, you get your cooldowns really fast, and really the best spear, if you're wanting to craft one, you're going to have a refreshing move on it anyways, most likely, and so you're going to get them back quickly. Right here on the chest piece, Enchanted Ward and Sturdy Energy is a must. Let me turn down the music. Jesus. All right, now we go to the gloves. I have medium gloves, Enchanted Ward, Refreshing, and Bleeding Sweep. Bleeding Sweep coup de grace will now apply a bleed for 10% weapon damage for 8 seconds. That is a nice way to add damage as a main spearman. And keep in mind, this is a main spearman setup, not a offhand, backup spear setup with the Bleeding Sweep on the spear. It is different. This is a main hand spear setup. I have the Attune Leather Pants as Refreshing on it. Now you can put health here if you plan on just only maining the spear. Now I put this Legion Flurry on here before the PvP tracks started giving out artifacts at level 50. So that should be taken off now because I will never use Attune Leather Pants with the Rapier because of cooldown change. I will only use the Nimble Coat, and I have that now on this account. This is one of my offhand accounts. So this will be changed to either something that can help with the spear or just put health on there. All right, for the feet, you really want an Enchanted Ward piece here, so you'd have to find one in the store with Leeching Cyclone. Good luck with that. Hasted Vigor, Leeching Cyclone. This will give you health back, 30% of weapon damage, max 3 targets, and Refreshing 4 out of 4. Okay, now if we come over here to the spear, I just use the Hoplite Spear. Disdain Infliction has Enfeebling Skewer and Keenly Jagged. Now, if more than one person has Keenly Jagged in the group, they will not stack, so a person with the highest damage is usually going to get the Keenly Jagged. If you want to craft a spear, I would put Disdain Infliction, Enfeebling Skewer, and Sundering Stacks. Now, now that a Sundering Stack is affordable, before it would be like a refreshing move, but now that Sundering Stack is affordable, with the Perforate adding 30% rend to the targets, and then the Sundering Stacks adding 20%, I mean, that's 50% right there. That's huge, okay? Now this is a Sandworm Great Axe, the Duneborn Pincer, I guess you would say it. I put Arbor Attunement on there. That's going to help against lost enemies, and I guess against all enemies, but it does extra damage to lost and corrupted. Enfeebling Maelstrom, targets hit by Maelstrom, no reprieve, are weakened, reducing their attack damage by 28% for 8 seconds. This is the biggest combo that I feel like a lot of new players don't have in mutations. When I run random mutations, no one ever has a great axe. It's like the second most important. I mean, it's so important to have one in the group in majority of the things that you're going to do to group up enemies. It's just we need to start doing that, guys. And Thwarting Strike, 7% of damage while you have active grit. That comes on the weapon. Nothing I can do about that. Brutal Heartrune, the main spearman will always carry the vines, unless maybe it has to do something else, but usually it's always the vines. Rending Vines, inflict rend on hit, reducing target's armor by 20% for 5 seconds. Now, if you want to upgrade this to 700, it will increase the base damage. It won't do anything with the perks down here, but it will increase the base damage. It's a pretty expensive to rank up, but hey, it's just extra damage, right? On the amulet, you're going to look for empowerment and whatever protection you need for that week's mutation. And then you can go health would be bis here. It'd be like health, empowered, and protection. But you can choose to go divine or whatever other third perk you want. All right, right here I have the old trusty Soul Pollen. You get this out of a mutated Genesis. Leeching, thrust damage, hardy. Okay, those are the mainstay perks that I like to use. If you're in the hive and you're going spear, then I would probably just keep using the elemental band, keen awareness, hardy, and leeching to help with extra critical chances. But as a mutation, I would just stay with thrust damage. You can get a 725 one if you want to craft one, that's fine. On the earring, Empowering Toast, Nimble, and whatever third perk you want. But Empowering Toast, when I drink a mana pot, I'm going to get 10% empowerment for 8 seconds. But now I'll proc it with the mana pot. Now, anytime you drink a health potion or whatever, it might proc anyways. But I would usually start off before the fight and go ahead and take that and have my empowerment and then get active. Skill tree can vary depending on what content you're doing in the game, but this is pretty much my mainstay here with the spear. I have the enfeebling skewer, I have perforate down the tree, sweep, and cyclone, but you can only run 3 abilities. I get that. There's a lot of times that you might on boss fights switch out to cyclone. Okay, it's better to be auto running and easily just go into your weapon mastery, switch this, than it is to respec the whole skill tree in a quick situation. Certain bosses, let's say the last boss in depths, last boss in depths, Thorpe, you really don't want bleeding sweep because you're going to be up in the air and you get caught by the back swings. You don't want that. The cyclone can be switched on certain mob pulls, and it's just really good to be able to set your spear up like that. How I set the great axe up is this. Now, I do vary this. Sometimes instead of taking this extra armor, I'll put on here after you pull a target, they are rooted. But with this, you're going to reap the enemies closer to you. Do not take this extra spin because you can get caught up. If you need a dodge, you can get caught up in an attack that maybe enemy's grit and you can't dodge because it's going to finish this swipe. So don't take that, but take all these other dots. It's going to help with damage. And then the Maelstrom right here is going to help weakening. Now make sure you take no reprieve here so you can have the weakening actually proc. And then the grab well, of course, is for grouping up enemies. You're also going to do damage when it bursts, and you give everybody standing inside 10% fortify. That's how I run the great axe. And what you would like to do when you go up to a mob, let's say archers back there chilling, you reap them here. You can even try to get them a little bit closer there with that, or you can throw a grab well and then Maelstrom, depending on the situation. Another thing with the grab well is a lot of times, let's say you're running up on enemies right here and the tank's getting them, all put together. A lot of people will throw the grab well here at the enemies, basically ground level. What you would like to do a lot of times is throw it up above. So you need to gauge your distance on how far the grab is going to go, and you'll get that over time. And then you would just simply throw it above. And that way it pulls them all together, but you don't accidentally hit a target that jumps in front of you right here. And now the grab well just doesn't do anything. Learn how to get good with the range on that. The Aconite's really good because you're going to be able to get 15% extra damage to poison enemies. And it affects both weapons, so that way you can go back to spear and still be doing your damage. Charge attacks cause a poison, dealing 5% weapon damage for 10 seconds. So there you go. You got poison arrows also. And I put an Arbol Attunement on there. You can feel free to do whatever you want. So the Aconite is just really simple. You just basically dodge, get your empowerment, get your debuffs, and then you go ahead and start doing some damage. All right. And that's what you want to do. You can stack up some bleeds really nicely there. Now, the bows that I also have in the inventory include one with enfeebling poison shot, disdain infliction, and keen. It also includes the penetrating rapid shot, which is probably the best perk on the bow because you're going to penetrate 36% armor. So you get a lot of critical. So in the hive, this one is just so good if you're going to be on the last boss sitting back with a bow. If you're not going to be sitting back on the bow on the first and second boss, then Aconite is insanely good. Now, instead of Arbol Attunement, you could put the penetrating rapid shots here. It's up to you. I'm mostly in melee, so I stay in melee. Another thing here, if you're running mutations, let's say M3, they did change the elemental cap to 50%. So you only need to go up to 50% for void damage resistance. Now, I did have someone in the chat the other day in the stream saying, Forge is mostly fire dungeon, so I just run fire and switch out that ambulance on name. No. If you do that, you're just going to get killed in M3, okay? They hit extremely hard. They hit half their damage is the damage mutation type, so void. So you're running Forge, and you think it's a lot of fire because there's fire in the background and whatnot, but it is 50% void. So when you're going in there, and if you only have the amulet with a void protection, that 21% is not nearly enough in an M3. You will get absolutely obliterated. So go to 50% void damage resistance. On the boss fights, they're their own thing, so you can change up your protections there. But that's more an M3 video. I don't want to go into that for here. But with these two gems, you can switch out to suit whatever you want to do. have a punishing carnelian here to show you that this will generate 8% less threat, and you deal 1.5% more damage to taunted foes. Your melee attacks also do 1% more damage. That's a really great gem you will see a lot of us run. You can do some sort of physical like slash, thrust, you know, in both pieces if you want. So in certain mutations, if it wasn't void week this week, let's say it was fire week this week, and I had all these purple gems as the red ones, the rubies. Okay, these I would probably put void gems in because there's so much void in Dynasty that you at least want some protection. Okay, so that's going to change week to week depending on what you do. There's a lot of variables in New World depending on what you're doing. So when people ask questions, try to have a specific question. If you're in someone's stream, I'm going to be doing this content. I'm looking for this on this week. What do you think? Because if you just say, what's the best spear setup? Well, it depends on what you're doing, bro. Because there's a couple different ways to run spear. I mean, I didn't even go over the offhand spear that some of the SNS spearmen run, or a backup spearman in an M3 group, because now there's usually 2 spears in a group. So didn't go over that. That'd be another M3 video. I wanted this one to be somewhat short. All right, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see y'all in the next video. If you have any video suggestions, feel free to ask in the comments, and I'll get to it. All right, later.